The camera isn't in a palace ballroom and there are no crowds, no military bands, no balcony theatrics, just two men in a quiet room and a sentence that lands like a bell toll. I'd say 2024 was the hardest year I've ever had. Prince William doesn't whisper it, he plants it. Life is sent to test us, he adds, and for once the platitude feels like a bruise you can see. Across from him sits Eugene Levy, the Hollywood traveler who usually collects quirky stories for Apple TV+. Instead, he's been handed the raw headline of a royal life stripped of ceremony. This is not promo fluff. This is a prince admitting that the last 12 months tore through his private world, that two diagnoses in the same family can turn palaces into waiting rooms and corridors into prayer lanes. Behind the measured smile is a husband who watched his wife disappear behind hospital doors and a son who watched his father become a patient. The Windsor machine always pretends everything is fine. William finally says out loud that it wasn't. He doesn't need to list the dates, we remember them. A video from a garden bench, Catherine speaking with that careful calm that only breaks in the pauses, explaining that after major surgery the doctors found what no family wants to hear. She talked about the huge shock, about time needed to explain it to 3 children who still leave their school shoes by the door, about starting treatment and keeping the rhythm of home steady enough that bedtime stories drowned out the beeping of worry. Later came the update that the chemotherapy course had ended, the kind of sentence that makes strangers exhale in kitchens and buses, followed by the quiet word everyone prayed for, remission. Then the second blow, another statement from Buckingham Palace, the kind that begins like routine and turns like a knife. During treatment for a benign issue, a separate problem was noticed. Tests identified a form of cancer. No further details, no comfort beyond the framework that treatment was underway. The images switched from walkabouts to arrivals and departures from clinics, and somewhere between those pictures a son realized that for the first time in his life the crown and its next chapter were both sitting in doctors' notebooks. So when William tells Eugene Levy that the year was a test, the line isn't a slogan, it's the map. Imagine juggling school runs, national ceremonies, and the invisible project of holding a family together while the world refreshes its feed every 5 minutes. Imagine shielding George, Charlotte, and Louis from the swamp of speculation, editing the adult vocabulary into words a child can carry: treatment, rest, getting better. Imagine stepping onto a stage to talk about mental health while your own feels like glass. Every handshake becomes a script you must perform, every smile a promise you hope you can keep. This is the Windsor paradox: the more private the pain, the more public the performance. William doesn't offer melodrama, but the subtext is thunder. For months he has walked the line between heir and husband, between son and stand-in sovereign, knowing that the press will eat any hint of fragility and the internet will salt it for taste. He tightens his jaw and keeps moving, investitures at Windsor, somber visits where grief sits across the table, hands held, sleeves rolled, cameras told to stay wide. But each public moment has a second life in private text messages from consultants, the quiet choreography of treatment schedules, the simple relief of hearing a kettle boil in a house that still feels normal. These are the victories you don't post. Levy's series, The Reluctant Traveller, is supposed to be about places. In Windsor it becomes about the person. The star who perfected deadpan ends up playing confidant, and William, who grew up rehearsed for silence, lets the shut door open a fraction. He doesn't rant about paparazzi or the pressure of legacy, he shows something riskier: perspective. Life set an exam, he sat it, he is still here. The subtext. For his critics is obvious: if you want to test a future king, take away the script and see if he can speak like a man. He just did. There's a tactical genius in the setting. A sit-down with a comic actor lowers the temperature, it disarms the hunt for scandal and replaces it with something the public actually trusts: conversation. It also allows William to echo the theme that has quietly defined his adult work: resilience without theatre. He talks about overcoming, not performing recovery, about family as a daily practice, not a glossy Christmas card. And in that gap between mantra and confession, you see a blueprint for how the monarchy might survive the decade: fewer pronouncements, more human sentences, fewer photo ops, more proof that the people inside the portraits actually feel. The hardest facts don't change because a camera is kind. Cancer is a thief of routine, and routine is what keeps royal oxygen flowing. Catherine's treatment forced the couple to rewire everything: who appears where, which engagements are kept, which are postponed, who explains what to whom and when. The palaces issued briefings designed to reveal nothing and comfort everyone. Social media did the opposite. Conspiracy threads multiplied every time she chose privacy over spectacle, and William learned the most modern royal lesson the brutal way: the algorithm despises nuance. He couldn't clap back, he couldn't overshare, all he could do was trust the clock and wait for health to write its own rebuttal. When the good news finally came, it wasn't a victory lap. It was a breath. Meanwhile, the king learned the same language. The palace avoided specifics, but the ritual of treatment is its own fluency: adjusted schedules, careful appearances, calculated gaps. For William, it meant carrying extra weight in public while keeping the family spine straight in private. This is the unglamorous core of monarchy the cameras never catch, not jewels and speeches, but logistics and stamina. It is car seats and briefings, school gates and red boxes, dinners that go cold and inboxes that never do. When he says life is sent to test us, he's telling you what the exam looks like. It looks like everything happening at once, and you still being expected to stand still. Critics will call the interview soft. They will say the questions were gentle, the setting carefully curated, the vulnerability surgically measured. They will be right, and they will miss the point. Royal communication has two gears: silence and signal. This was signal. Not to serve ratings or burnish an image, but to anchor the story in a voice that isn't a statement from a press office. It also stakes ground before the next wave of noise hits, a reminder that behind the paperwork of the crown there are people who bleed, worry, wait, and then go back to work because millions of strangers need the routine to continue. What does the year do to the man? It hardens the edges and softens the center. William's public tempo sharpened: less patience for circus, more focus on visible results. His private circle tightened, leaks dried, the message discipline became iron. But the generosity multiplied too: the way he lingers with families whose vocabulary now matches his, the way he threads mental health into everything without turning it into a brand. He has learned what every nurse already knows: you don't need the right words, you need to stay in the room. And Catherine? The country learned again what it loved about her in the first place: the absence of theatre. No rage at the rumour mill, no griping at the press, no diary of suffering, just the long quiet work of getting well and getting back, one promise at a time. When she said she was in remission, it wasn't triumph, it was relief, the kind that makes a house finally open its windows. Remission is not a ribbon cutting. It is permission to plan again. That is the energy you can feel creeping back into Windsor, the future tense returning to sentences that had lived too long in the present. William's confession to Levi won't fix the nastier corners of the internet or disinfect gossip that prefers fiction to fact. But it resets the tone from the only mouth that matters. It says, the year was brutal, we were tested, and we kept going. It says, behind the titles are children who asked questions no child should have to ask, and parents who answered them without lying. It says, this isn't a myth about perfect people, it's a story about a family that didn't break. There will be more ceremonies, more balcony waves, more cynics counting the seconds to the next misstep. There will be more projects and speeches, more school plays and state dinners, more of the strange double life that turns a family calendar into a national one. But there will also be the memory of a prince sitting in a simple room telling a comedian the kind of truth that makes silence flinch. The line will echo because it is clean: 2024 was the hardest year. Life tested us. We overcame. You can build a reign on sentences like that, not because they are grand, but because they are true. And somewhere in Windsor, after the lights from the crew have been packed away and the corridors have swallowed the last footstep, a father closes a door, checks 3 rooms where 3 children sleep, and allows himself 1 minute to feel the weight of what has been and the relief of what might be next. Then he does what the job always requires: he straightens, he breathes, and he walks back into the day.